spicy foods upsetting his stomach, he said. And all those things where he was kind of inventing drinking games. And New York Times kind of fact-checked some of his claims here. I think it would be very interesting to look into. So, yeah. So the first quote that they fact-checked here is, Dr. Ford's allegation is not merely uncorroborated, it is refuted by the very people she says were there, including by a longtime friend of hers, punctuating the statement with an extra refuted. So that's very nice. But, yeah. While it is true that 3 people did not corroborate Dr. Blasey's account, they did not refute it either. So that kind of like little change in words and patterns, including statements from Leland Kaiser, Patrick Smith, PJ, attending the gatherings, they all said they had no knowledge. They never said it didn't happen. They also said that Leland Kaiser had significant health challenges. So, like, saying things like this, will it have a big deal with Kavanaugh at all in the end, do you think?
No, not really. I mean, Kavanaugh during his testimony said that these 4 people, like you said, refuted that testimony. That was language that's stronger than really what they said, just like you pointed out. These 4 witnesses just said that they couldn't remember the gathering. And then Leland, her female friend, who's having medical issues of her own, although she said she didn't remember it, she said she does believe Dr. Ford. But I don't think that, that's a real material difference in this case.
Yeah, that at least that claim seems to be a very big deal. He portrayed himself in this testimony as enjoying a beer or two as a high school and college student, as someone who did not often drink beer in excess during those years. He said, "I never drunk beer to the point of blacking out." His statements are at odds with many of his classmates, or some of his classmates, at least, I guess I should say, how they remembered him. In interviews before his testimony, nearly a dozen college classmates of Judge Kavanaugh said they recalled him indulging in heavy drinking, some saying it went beyond normal consumption. To be sure, a smaller number of his classmates said the drinking was unexceptional. Reached after the testimony, someone by the name of Lynn Brooks, an undergraduate classmate of Judge Kavanaugh at Yale University, said he grossly misrepresented it and mischaracterized his drinking. And, I mean, like, I know these aren't a very big deal in the broad scheme of things, but still, I just think, like, why... It just bothers me that he lies about things that are, like, so many people can just refute so frequently. Almost in kind of a Trumpian way.
I do think this is a bigger deal. I mean, the fact that he's denying that he's ever blacked out, and if you get multiple people coming forward that said that he did. I mean, there was that trip they took to Fenway Park, and when they got back in the early hours, he basically stumbled and fell out of the bus because he was so inebriated. That to me sounds like a blackout to me.
Yeah. And that could provide more explanation to the fact that he does not recall that night.
It could be. But, that's close to, perjuring yourself when you say that you never blacked out and yet witnesses say that you did, or that you grossly misunderestimated or downplayed your drinking stories, He was very often portrayed as very drunk and aggressive and belligerent when he was drunk. It just doesn't paint a very good picture of Brett Kavanaugh, regardless of the sexual misconduct. And this kind of conduct is not really befitting of a federal judge. Not to even speak of a Supreme Court justice. So, it really is a shame that more Republican senators are not stepping forward and just asking that his nomination be withdrawn. But the political timing of this is just so awful, right? The Republicans are facing an upcoming election where there's a good chance, or at least a decent chance, that they might lose the Senate. And if they lose the Senate, they can't get any more judges confirmed that Trump would appoint, presumably, or at least ones that are not as far to the right as they want. If Justice Kennedy had retired, say, earlier this year, in January or February, they'd have, and all this stuff after that still happened, they'd have time to withdraw his nomination and say he's not fit to be a Supreme Court justice. It's pretty obvious that he's not, even if you don't prove these sexual allegations. They'd have time to appoint a new one and get it through before the midterms. But they're really stuck here, and that's why they are going full bore ahead anyway. It's just crazy. The whole circumstances around this confirmation are the timing, the allegations, the circus atmosphere, the partisanship. It's all just nuts.
And, I mean, you could really make the case that it all has to do with this upcoming election and that they could really just do better than just to pull it out here. But, again, I mean, it's not even like, I mean, you get the sense almost that people like Lindsey Graham and their allies, so people like Laura Ingraham, who are, like, furious, yelling every night on Fox News about this Kavanaugh. You get the sense that they're really in it, and for some reason it just has to be Brett Kavanaugh, which doesn't really make any sense to me.
Right, and the fact that they're yelling, practically hysterically, shows how concerned they are. They know better. This is all this histrionics, of course, is their fear that this is going to fall apart, and that they won't get the judge they want that can tip the court. And in their heart of hearts, they know that this man is not fit to be on the Supreme Court. And they have to deal with that in their conscience. And they have to weigh the political strategy with the moral heartstrings that's within them. And this was basically what you saw in Senator Jeff Flake. Unfortunately, not enough Republicans feel this way. It's hard to know what Lisa Murkowski and Susan Collins feel, but I tend to think that they're in the same boat. I think Murkowski is probably closer to a no than Collins is, but they're probably going to want to vote as a block. And I don't think that Jeff Flake is necessarily there either. He voted to get this through committee, but that doesn't necessarily mean he'll vote the same way when it comes to the floor. We'll see.
Yeah, and I mean, through that time period, he's going to get the target of ads. He's going to get the target of a lot of powerful people coming to his office and saying, do you really want to be the one person who steps in the way of getting a judicial conservative majority on the Supreme Court? A chance for conservatives, real conservatives, to decide law in this country for 30, 40, 50 years. And do you really want to be the one person who steps in the way of that, all because of some allegation that happened so long time ago? And that could be for someone, especially if it's coming from a very powerful person, someone like Ed Whelan, or someone maybe even more higher up than him in the conservative power hierarchy. That could make a lot of impact, and I don't think in the end his moral objections are going to, his moral standing is going to resist that. It'll become, I would be very surprised personally if any of them vote no, because they have all so many after, if Flake's going to retire in a few months, where is he going to go? He's not going to just live living in the ranch in Arizona, he's probably going to want to go back into the private sector of Washington, D.C. And how is he going to do that and work for some kind of a Republican if he was the one who got in the way of what probably the Republicans care most about, which is getting this opportunity of a conservative Supreme Court for the first time in like forever?
Yeah, I mean, if he didn't, the interesting thing about Flake is that, of course, he doesn't have any political pressure on him to win in November because he's not running again. But I think he still has political aspirations. He may decide to run for president in 2020. He's not a fan of Trump, and he might challenge him in 2020. So he has to weigh this decision before him, in that consideration. And the trouble with Flake is that unlike the other Republican senators who are just bland yes votes, is that he's going to be blamed either way, no matter how he votes, by some portion of the electorate, right? So if he votes no and he tries to run for president in 2020, that could get more Democrats out to vote because they'll remember that he cast, a deciding vote against them, and they expected him to step up and be their hero, and he didn't. And then on the other hand, if he votes no, he's not going to get any support in the Republican primaries when he tries to run for president. So, his political career is kind of in the balance right now, and he's kind of in a no-win situation, and he's struggling morally and ethically with this right now, big time.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of that's what happens when you build yourself out as someone as a centrist. It's very hard to get any real support because you're going to end when you try to appeal, as I said in the very beginning of the show, when you try to appeal to everyone, you end up appealing to no one because someone's always going to be left unhappy. And that's kind of the problem. Although, I mean, I really doubt he's going to be very effective, at least running for president, because he's kind of in my mind, a lot of Mitt Romney 2.0 in the age of Trump and the way the Republican primary base is. I don't think he's going to get a lot of support really at all from Trump, and because he has the base fully behind him, and I think challenging him would be very unsuccessful. I mean, maybe he could run as an independent, but I just don't see him running as a Republican really getting any support in any way, really. But I do think that where he could probably possibly go is some high-powered lobbying or position or somewhere high in the conservative movement. It's just, I don't know, someplace high in the conservative movement, I guess is how I'm going to call it. But anyway, yeah, so that's what we know at the point, and there is such a moral decision weighing on these people, and the question is, I mean, everyone tries to portray Kavanaugh as someone who is a very high and upstanding man, but the question is, how could we say that when he has, both in his first testimony and in his second testimony here, he has lied or mischaracterized things under oath? And we have another example. I know we just talked a little while ago about the drinking issues, but there is the whole situation in more yearbook entries, as a substantial portion of Judge Kavanaugh's testimony was devoted to discussing his senior yearbook. In one entry, he described himself as he described himself as a Renate alumnus, referring to Renate Schroeder, who is now Renate Dolphin, who attended nearby Catholic school. A number of his football teammates had similar entries. Kavanaugh said that yearbook reference was clumsily intended to show affection, and that she was one of us, which I don't get because, I mean, it's like that's like a name that kind of implies like you're on top of her. We topped you in a way, Renate. But in this circus, the media interpreted the term that it was related to success. It's not related to sex. It's not related to sex. But here's the thing: 4 of Judge Kavanaugh's former schoolmates, including Sean Hagen, said the notion that the phrase meant affectionately